Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening if you're joining from Paris. My name is John Valdivia. I am the chair of the Entertainment Law section here at the Beverly Hills Bar Association. We welcome you to our program entitled Content Providers versus Internet Service Providers, Net Neutrality Principle Challenged by the European Commission. I'm going to introduce our speakers today in a brief moment, but before that, I want to make just a few general announcements. On Thursday, December 8th at 6 p.m., we have the Beverly Hills Bar is hosting Ring in the New Year, which is going to be our drinks and hors d'oeuvres and networking event starting at 6 p.m. at Cafe Roma in Beverly Hills. And just a reminder to those of you who are joining today that today is Cyber Monday, and Beverly Hills Bar is offering its on-demand materials 25% off today. So if you see a particular program that you like, feel free to check on the website and browse through our large catalog of CLEs. Now I'm going to introduce our two speakers for today. First, we have Julien Brunet of Spring Legal, which is a law firm based in Paris. Julien practices intellectual property law as well as new technologies, information, and communication law. He advises and litigates in various sectors of activity: cinema, audiovisual communication, publishing, music, personal data, and new technologies. Julien advises his clients in the legal structuring, that is contractual chains and financing of film and audiovisual projects such as feature films, TV series, streams, immersive works, and defends their interests in legal proceedings. Next to him, we also have Karine Riahi, who's a partner at Spring Legal. Karine is specialized in intellectual property law. Her practice areas cover legal techniques related to the production and management of intellectual creations and their economic environment. The cases she handles involve all the actors of the creative process. Karine accompanies film and audiovisual production companies, talent and media, up to video game publishers, web content, virtual reality content, and transmedia programs. And without further ado, I'm going to let you two take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. Bonsoir tout le monde. Bonsoir to the United States and bonsoir to Paris, because it's a late evening for us tonight, and it's a true honor to discuss with you tonight and to do. This is the second time we do this CLE conference, and the last time it was before COVID, so it was in person, and today, of course, with the terrible years we spent all together in the world, where we are using this Zoom technology, which is very useful, but of course it's less personal, and we are sorry to not be in front of you to discuss, because it's always such an honor to discuss with our fellow colleagues in the US about subjects we are working on a daily basis with Karine in Paris. So Spring Legal is a full service firm. We are six partners and 6 associates working in corporate law, labor law, public law, transactional, of course, and litigation, criminal law. And Karine and I, we are the head of a team of 4 people working in entertainment law. So we're working for studios, producers, independent producers, talents, and also startup digital companies. We ensure the GDPR, the data compliance for those companies. And we had the idea a few weeks ago to introduce to the Beverly Hills Bar Association and for you an upcoming subject, a very interesting subject that you know very well in the US, because of course it's a worldwide subject, which is the battle, I would say, the battle that exists between the content providers and the internet service provider, the ISPs, you know, regarding the use of the bandwidth, the infrastructure, and this question that we will discuss together about should we consider that the content provider are required to contribute to the investments of the telecommunication. This is a long-going debate. This is not new, but this is something that has been brought by the European Commission this year to say, okay, after the pandemic, we realized that there is the congestion of the traffic and the use of the bandwidth was tremendously done by the content providers. So politicians required that maybe this is the proper time for content providers to participate in the infrastructure. And of course, this involves many legal subjects. And of course, we will discuss this together. So we have this presentation. This is a very short one. The idea is to cover the presentation together for maybe 40 minutes, something like that. And if you have questions, there is a Q&A section, and we will be delighted, of course, to interact with you and to answer to the question you might have. Okay. So the roadmap for this presentation is to discuss together how the net neutrality principle is now challenged by the European Commission. So there are three important themes to discuss today. First, the background, of course. What is a network fee in the European Union? What is this new subject? Is this subject new? And of course, why this subject is imported, discussed by the European Commission today. Then, of course,
Julien, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Could you? Looks like the screen share didn't get started. If you could. Sorry about that.
No problem. More important. No, it's here. Just see. Yes, maybe you're right. Plus. Okay, sorry for that. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see the presentation now.
Wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
This is the first page presentation. So this is the just what I was discussed before, that we will introduce this subject of a battle between content providers and internet service providers with respect to the contribution to the investment to telco infrastructure. And the three themes we will discuss together: the background, the positions of the parties at stake. Okay, so what the content providers are saying about this new upcoming regulation, and of course why the telecommunication service providers are bringing this idea of network fees with the upcoming new European regulation. And we will discuss at the end why this EU statement is challenging a very important principle in the European framework and also in the legislation, the regulation of any member states, which is the net neutrality principle, which is also a principle defended in the US and covered for years by the FCC, with some strong debates regarding in 2017 with the administration of President Trump, when he decided to neutralize this principle, and in July 2021, when President Biden said we need to reintroduce this principle in the US, because of course there are many consequences with respect to this principle. Okay, so this is the roadmap, and at first we would like to, as background, discuss with you the fact that there is an increase, a significant increase now in data traffic that might challenge the net neutrality principles. Okay, so in the past 15 or 20 years, the EU member states have made significant progress in all the digital transition, and the network traffic patterns have increased dramatically. Okay, and this was accelerated, of course, by the COVID-19 pandemic, and this surge in data traffic required massive investment. So what the European Commission did to oversee and to deal with this new huge consumption of traffic was to introduce maybe a new regulation. Yeah, I say maybe because it's in debate, in a widespread context of digital transition. Okay, there is a plan from the European Commission. There is a plan called the Europe's Digital Decade, Digital Targets for 2030. Okay, so it's a plan to say we need to improve the investment in the European Commission with the spirits, of course, in the spirits and with the respect of the European principles, which is the free circulation of services and companies and persons. Okay, so in the digital transition, we and I'm pretty much sure at some point in your practice you faced those regulation. They are first maybe you heard about the GDPR. Okay, the GDPR, which was introduced in May 2018, which was to ensure the compliance and the protection of personal data. Okay, then we had the copyright directive, which was strengthened and actually this is a regulation coming from France to say, okay, all the member states have to harmonize their legislation with the copyright principles, and in those principles we have many copyright principles, such as the fair compensation, the compensation proportional to the receipts of the gross receipts for the authors. Okay, so we have a new framework for copyright and neighboring rights coming from this new directive, which is now implemented in the French regulation. We had what we call the ASMV directive. I'm sure you heard about that, which is a very important directive we've introduced in France and in other member states, and that is requiring from the platform, the ASMV platform, such as, of course, Netflix, Amazon, Disney+, Apple, to contribute from their ROI significant amount in the productions of the contents in the targeted countries, which are of course the European countries, such as in France. So the affiliate of Netflix is based in France. Now they have to contribute to the production, and they participate in the creation with a very significant amount, 25% of the turnover. Okay, so and we see in this regulation that there is always the idea to get something from someone big or bigger, or to obtain more money or more investment from major actors. Most of them, of course, are, and if not all of them, are Americans, such as the GAFAM, and to see how they could contribute. This brings a lot of debates, politics debates, a lot of debates, of course, and action from lobbyists to struggle, to battle in Brussels, but also in Paris, to say we just want to introduce our services, we don't want to contribute. And after years and years, now we are dealing with this new regulations, and everyone seems appeased with this new regulation. And we see that now there is a new one. There are many new ones. First, there is the Digital Service Act, the Digital Market Act, the DSA and DMA. The idea is to obtain the regulation of cryptocurrency, okay, to define what is a cryptocurrency, and to obtain a new regulation on tax regulation for this market. And the upcoming one we will discuss now together is what we call the Connectivity Infrastructure Act, which is only at the very beginning. And the idea of this Connectivity Infrastructure Act is to, as I said in introduction, to discuss how the content providers could contribute to the implementation, the investment in infrastructures. And we will see how it could work. Okay, so there is this European Commission statement, very important, made in May of this year, saying, okay, after the pandemic, we would like, we see that the actors who benefited the most from the pandemic period, where the people were at home, are the content providers, because we can measure that there is a congestion of traffic. We can measure the traffic, the use of the bandwidth, and actually, as we will see, most of them are coming from the major internet service content provider, such as the GAFA. Okay, so this is new, but this is not that new, because in 2011 and 2010, 10 and 11, this question was already introduced, because the CEOs of the major European telecommunications, such as Orange, Dutch Telecom, Verizon, T-Mobile, they are also in Germany, they wanted to obtain from the service, the content providers, a participation, a contribution to the investment. And we will see that this statement is not fully covered by law, and of course is challenging principles that are at the core, at the essence of the telecommunication regulations, and first, of course, the principle of net neutrality, okay, which was voted by the European Parliament in 2015, as we will discuss further later. And this is a new position that might have impact, that might transcend the European territories. There is the exact same question now in South Korea, but also, of course, in the US. And we will discuss this later. Okay, so in the background, we will discuss with you who should support the infrastructure investment, who is supporting the infrastructure investment, what in concrete is the EU Commission statement, and of course we will dig a bit more about the neutrality principle. Okay, regarding who should support the infrastructure investment, and monopolizing the parole, but of course Karine will discuss after about the net neutrality. This is something we discuss together, and I think it's very interesting, because it's also based on the practice we have in France, because we are counseling, advising startup, digital startup, and actually they are very satisfied with the fact that they don't have to pay to be charged more for the use of connectivity and bandwidth. Okay, in Europe, in France, you don't have network fees. You don't have to pay more to get a premium access to the bandwidth. Okay, this is something very important, because when in the US in 2017 the net neutrality principle was abolished by the Trump administration, the side effect of that, the direct effect of that, was that many big companies of the internet companies was able to cover and to offer to the end users better services than small companies which was not able to pay for better access to bandwidth. And this is something that has been emphasized for years by the European Commission to say, and the European Parliament to say, in Europe, on the European territory, each each user are equals with respect to the use of the bandwidth. Okay, so to answer to the question, who should support the infrastructure investment, the answer up to date is only the ISP. The internet service provider are the only one paying for the submarine cable, the backbone cable, the ACE cable, which are the cable in the ocean, at the borders of the European territories. Also the antennas, the 5G roll-up and the antennas, all those costs, which of course represent billions of investments, are covered by the internet service providers. And on the other end, the content and application providers, what we call the CAPs, are of course creating and offering content to businesses and consumers. And more, they are participating in the development of infrastructure, such as the implementation of database with Amazon, for instance, at their own cost. There is, of course, you know, the Starlink project from Elon Musk, which is a self-autonomous telecommunication navigation, which doesn't require any existing telecommunication infrastructure. And so the questions is not the question, the answer to this question, who should support the infrastructure investment, is pretty much clear today. This is the telecommunication and internet service providers. Okay, so this is first a very important background, because what we see now in a digital economy and society index of 2022. So we introduced the source in our presentation. So there are many studies made by the Association of Telecommunication Providers. Today, numbers that you should have in mind are that 70% of the US territory is covered by fixed, very high capacity networks. Okay, there is a target of 100% by 2030, but 70% is a big number. Of course, there are many disparities between the countries, because in Eastern Europe, they are less effective in respect to the Western member states, for instance. 50% of households is covered by networks connecting buildings with fiber, which is very important. And 60% of populated areas is covered by 5G, against 14% in 2020, which is, you can see, there is a gap in increase with respect to 2020 and 2022. Okay, 70% of all data traffic on network is used by video streaming, games, and social networking hosted by a handful of digital content platforms. So you can see that video is representing 63.7%, which is very important. And also that this is others. Video is 2.7%. Sorry, and you can see that Google, Facebook, Netflix, Amazon, Microsoft are, of course, the most important users of the bandwidth.
And just to emphasize this diagram is that you see that Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Facebook, and Google are like the target of the ISPs, considering that those companies had increased enormously their revenues from the COVID, and at that time and during that time they really been they really receive a lot of revenues, and then the ISPs doesn't understand how come those companies who are so huge company don't have to participate to the investment that they are going to use more and more, because it will not be stopped. This is how we can also add some element of the context of what now the EU has to deal with. Those big groups, they are as big, the ISPs are as big as the content providers, those content providers, and that they have to create a regulation that is that can help for the equality on those groups. They understand that it's not possible that only one group has to pay for the so high level group on the other side. So this is what you have to understand, because this is the role of the EU to always make the balance between the interest of everyone for the benefit of the consumers, of the European citizens. This is, you know, it is important to say that, because it's not like finding regulation for the better economy for this group or the other group. There always has to be a balance, is why it is important to see the pros and the cons of the two positions, to see how then the EU will have to deal with those two different interests, if those two groups have different interests, which is not sure. Okay.
That's true. And just John, I will answer to the question at the end. So just to still in the numbers, 56% of the 2021 global data traffic is generated by Meta, Alphabet, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and Netflix. This number is very important because from that numbers, the European Commission made the statement we will discuss just after. Okay, the European ISP investment in 2021, this is 43.5 billion in fiber, 16 billion in networks mobile. Okay, and the association ETNOS is the association of the main telcos in Europe. They are considering that the investment estimation to reach the full capacity would require 150 billion and 150 billion for both FTTH full coverage and the 5G. Okay, which is extremely important, which are extremely important numbers. So the total cost that can be attributed to the OTTs, the driven traffic generated by the content providers, are between 36 and 40 billions for both fixed and mobile. And actually, the European Commission is saying that a contribution of 20 billions via a mechanism of direct agreements with the ISPs could give a 62 billion boost to the European economy. This is the reason why they are requiring for the such network fees, because they consider that such amount of investment would help to reach the cap and the total investment they are targeting by 2030.
Because all the territory in Europe has to be covered by the ISP services. This is the aim of the EU, is that all the citizens of the European territory could have an access to those ISPs services.
Absolutely. And so the European Commission assessments, just for your knowledge, in Europe, how it works, you have the European Commission, okay, which is the executive power represented by the member states. Okay, this is the politics. They are the politicians, the ones who are making the statements, and then the response in face of that are coming from the European Parliament. Okay, so first there is always the European statement, the European Commission statement, and then the parliamentaries have to respond and to work closely on how to address in regulation, in laws, the concerns by the European Commission. Okay, and so according to European Commission, it is time to assess whether and how the major content providers can contribute to the cost of digital networks. That, of course, will bring to a beneficiary-based model. It is, as a matter of timeline, this is something that maybe would concern your clients. You can work with this timeline. First, we have the statement from the European Commission in spring 2022. Then in August, France, Italy, and Spain addressed a letter to the European Commission for a legislative proposal to ensure all the market players could contribute to the cost of digital infrastructure. Then in September 14, 2022, there was a letter from the members of parliament supporting the network fee. And actually, why we are bringing this subject to you is because my mom, is a European deputy for France. Okay, she's a member of President Macron administration, and she's European deputy, and she has been approached by association for content providers, but also for the telecommunication association to support the European Commission. And actually, they are working, those parliamentaries, on the pros and cons that we will discuss together about introducing the network fees. Okay. In September 16, 2 days after the letters signed by the members of parliament, the European Consumer Association, which is the BEUC, very important in Europe, opposed to the introduction of those fees. They are extremely important because they are the one working on the studies for the end consumer perspective. Okay, so the user, you and I, and actually they are the ones saying, okay, this regulation is as or will have consequences for the end users, the consumers, or not. Okay, and actually they're opposed to the introduction of network fees. So this is something that will be, of course, taken in consideration by the parliamentaries, and response from the telcos in favor of a fair contribution in September 26. And this leads us to this timeline, which is that in the next 6 months, in 2023, the European Commission and the parliamentarians will work together on the development of the Connectivity Infrastructure Act, exactly the same as they did with the GDPR, for instance, or the copyright directive. And there is a strong debate in Brussels now to say, of course, you should consider this position with lobbyists from one side and lobbyists from the other side. Okay, so the timeline, just to keep this in mind, in the 6 months, we will see, of course, the subject, and of course, in the US, they will discuss about this new regulation. Now we enter in the core of the principle, which is why this statement is complicated with European existing law. Okay, so first, what is the net principle? The principle of net neutrality. This is the end user's right to be free to access and distribute information and content, use and provide applications and services of their choice. It means, translations, that this is the freedom of access to the bandwidth, and the consumers or the professionals don't have to pay any premium access, and there is no split of premium access to the bandwidth. Okay, so it's
important that we have titled the conference this way, is that for the European Commission and for the EU, and also for the countries of the EU, in each countries, the principle of the neutrality of the net neutrality is very, very, very important. Is one like a fundamental principle, because this is in the net neutrality that we can express the freedom of expression, which is a very strong principle that it's complicated to fight against or to have consequences that could make it disappear. This is like a human, not a human rights, but it's the freedom of expression is one of the human rights, and it's not possible. This is why the parties we are against the network fees are so strong against this possibility, is that if it could destroy the principle of net neutrality, it can be accepted. So as the EU is also a territory of compromise and balance, there will be the argument of the two parties that how we can do something without make the net neutrality principle disappear, or the freedom of expression a risk of disappearance. So this is why we have entitled this subject, because this is a very high level subject and a very high risk of something.
So just to introduce this principle of net neutrality principle, there are 3 important elements to know from the European Open Internet Regulation from 2015. First, the internet service providers, they are prohibited from blocking or slowing down internet traffic except where necessary. For instance, to manage exceptional or temporary network congestion, okay, which was the case during the pandemic. There is a principle of best effort internet, meaning that internet service providers must do everything possible to transport data regardless of their contents, which is actually, I saw one in the Q&A section, a very good remark from someone with the analogy of public roads. That's very accurate. The service providers, they are not allowed and required to charge more the users of the traffic, because in the end you will use the services, you will pay for the services, but what matters is of course the circulation and what we will do with the services and all the economy that involves, and of course the employments and the benefits that come from that. Okay, so this is extremely important, and this leads to a creation of the body of European regulators for electronic communication, the BEREC, which is in charge of controlling the respect of the net neutrality principle. Okay, this was implemented in France, and there is one regulation in France, which is the ARCEP, l'Autorité de régulation des communications électroniques et des postes, which is very powerful in France and is working to control and to see if the net neutrality principle is respected. So now we will discuss the arguments of the parties. Of course, there are many associations, for instance, the Motion Picture Association of America, the MPA, representing the major studios, but also the EVOD Commission European with the main content providers companies in Europe, which in the 2 past months send all the arguments opposing, and we will discuss them of course now, why this will impact the implementation of network peaks, why this will impact of course the creation and of course the circulation and of contents and the respect of net neutrality principle. And of course then we will discuss first in favor, what are the pros in favor of network fees. Okay, in favor you have the Vodafone, Orange, Deutsche Telekom, Telefonica, Swisscom, all the ISP, and in oppositions you have the end user consumers, the coalitions of VOD, the MPA, for instance, and of course parliamentaries. Now we are seeing that there is a split of the parliamentaries. Some are pros and some are against. Okay, and what is very interesting in this, that the one in favor of the network fees are the one sustaining the idea that someone benefited the most during the pandemic situation. It comes from this. It comes from this situation, saying major companies, major studios benefited from the bandwidth during the pandemic. Now they have, and of course many companies suffered from a lack of competitivity, and now you need to address this. Okay, so there are 3 impacts in favor of the net neutrality, of the network fees. First, the economic impact. The European territory need to meet the plan for 2030. We need to get more money. You need to face the increase of energy and materials cost, and of course you need to catch up the major territories and countries such as Japan and US in deployment of new technologies. Social impact, the idea is to improve the quality and capacity of digital network infrastructure and to provide better access and quality services, to improve the innovation, and of course to pay for that. And a very important impact also, which is the environmental impact, which is to improve environment and sustainability, the energy consumption, the carbon footprint, and so on. So you can see that they are the traditional and actually the long sustained arguments in favor of any regulations impacting the digital and the content creations in Europe, but maybe also in other industries, that we need to get more money to obtain the development of investment, significant investment, and contributions to the infrastructure. What is very interesting now, because I saw the time flying, it's of course are the arguments from the network fees and opposing the network fees, and from the content providers themselves. This is extremely important to discuss that. And actually, most of the questions could come from that. But why now the European Commission is asking from someone using the bandwidth to contribute to the infrastructure? It's more, there is an analogy of one, I think it's a Dutch parliamentary, which is very smart, who used to say that you will not require to the maker of a washing machine you will not require the fabricants of a washing machine will not require from the one selling the soaps to contribute to the investment of the washing machine. This is absolutely unnecessary and counterproductive because of course this is a bar and this is weakening the competitivity, of course, of the vendor machines exactly the same with respect from the content provider versus the ISP provider. So what the cons from the network fees are saying is that first, the traffic is not caused by content providers but by consumers. They are not the content providers themselves who are using the bandwidth. They are the consumers in the end. Okay, so why the companies bringing new services of content access will contribute to this? Actually, they are contributing in many different ways. As I said before, they are contributing to the creation, which is of course something that we can debate, but there is more sense to bring the debate on this rather than in the telco itself. That's first. The incremental costs for extra traffic are not very significant. There is no proof that, of course, the incremental cost for extra traffic will increase. There is no evidence of what we call the free riding. Okay, the market is competitive, and the content providers invest in content, and the risk of bringing more new regulation for the contributions will lead to a reduction of production. So one of your questions, John, was about what is the direct impact of such a regulation. There are consequential damages for, of course, for the content providers and tenants, because of course in the end, if there is less investment in production, of course the impact will be negative for the creative industry. This is the reason why, of course, also unions of producers are against such regulation, because they would prefer more investment on the production side. Okay, and of course the content providers are saying that the telecommunications and their companies are interdependent. This is a day-to-day business, and of course they are interdependent. They are providing the access, they are providing the content. This is not the same category, and of course for each company their own investment. Okay, so that is very important, because first the content providers are saying that the network fee would reduce the investments in creation, and this will impact the diversity of product, the prices. This is the exact, the best examples what are happening now in South Korea and Germany. Actually, when they introduced network fees in Germany after the pandemic, the major telecommunication says we would not use the bandwidth if you don't pay more. And in the end, one university, very important university in Germany, was impacted because the bandwidth was reduced, and actually the problem was not solved, and because there was blackmail from the telecommunication operator, the impact was direct for one of the university with access very limited in Germany. So this is one case very important that happened in Germany. As I said, there is a discrimination with respect to the end users, because of course the opponent to network fees are saying that if someone can pay more to the access to internet, to the open access to internet, of course there will be a disparity of prices. Big companies would there would be big companies to pay premium access, while there will be smaller companies not able to pay for such premium access, and the impact on competitivity would be, of course, very important. There is also a significant risk that at the end, the one who will pay for such investment are the end users, you and me, because maybe there will be an increase in the pricing of the subscription abonnement, for instance. With such new regulations, there will be a risk that Netflix, for instance, will increase the pricing of the subscription abonnement, but not just Netflix, maybe or any other content providers companies. So there is, of course, a risk for that. That's why the body in charge of representing the end user consumers is against this new regulation, and of course there is difficulty to determine, to identify with accuracy where the traffic is coming from and where it's going. So first of all, what is the definition of a content provider with this regulation? Who will be a content provider in this? And is this regulation will follow the existing regulation in content? And so there will be, of course, again and again, a problem of interpretation and conflicts of definitions. And of course, new cases before the European Court of Justice, and a problem to face with this new regulation. Okay, so those are very, very significant argument opposed by the opponents. And what we can see with respect to the European net neutrality principle is that first, we will see a direct impact in the content production. This is very important. A risk of unfair competition between small versus big content providers, an indirect impact to end users, consumers who might be required to pay a higher fee to access the content. This is what we call the sending party network space principle, where the providers, the network providers, could charge both their customers and the content providers to carry content to users. So they would be like gods with respect to charging the fees. This is extremely important to consider. And the network fee scheme could turn markets designed to serve end user from one market to a two-sided markets, with paying consumers on one end and other consumers on the other end. Okay, that's why the content providers associations are asking to the parliamentaries to really consider first to consult and not to move on their own side, to consult the main actors and to assess the impact of such a regulation. They are calling for such assessment. This is very important, and they are also requiring to see that, for instance, there is one very, very important argument which is not in representation, but coming from the cons to the network fees. We say, okay, today you are saying that the users of streaming platforms are the one consuming the more the bandwidth, but you are not taking into considerations the one using the piracy website. And actually, we all know, because we are, of course, representing clients who are facing piracy problems, that, of course, there is a huge consumption of piracy websites. And actually, if you are not taking into considerations those one in the use of the piracy the use of the bandwidth, of course, there is a problem in the assessments of who should contribute or not. Okay.
Exactly, and this is I think one of the most interesting arguments for the party who is against the network fees, because in Europe nothing is really done to fight against piracy. This is always something which is left on the side, and there is we showed you that there was a lot of EU regulation for this market, but regulation of the piracy is not something that really interested the parliamentary and the EU Commission in the EU. So this is maybe one of the arguments we can increase and get higher little by little when they will discuss about the subject. And I think we have to put a light on this argument, which could be a great one, could manage to bring the two parties on the same direction.
Absolutely.
This is what we feel.
Absolutely. So this is the end. We are sharing with you a bibliography. Those are the main studies. Actually, we share a few of them with you guys regarding the positions of the parties. And now I would like to discuss a few questions that has been asked in the presentations. So first, if content providers are going to invest in the development of infrastructure, will the content providers acquire an ownership stake in the ISPs as consideration? We don't know yet, of course, but this is definitely something that it will require. They will require that, and this is a very good question, because up to date you have telecommunication companies such as Orange in France, for instance. They have, of course, the main services is the telecommunication services. They are providing the access to the bandwidth, the phone mobile services, but they're also investing in content. There is an affiliate, there is an entity in charge of the cinema, the film production, the TV series, Orange Cinema Series and Orange Studio. And actually, they already have stakes in the USP. So there is already a mix of telcos and the content providers. And maybe this is a door open for the content providers to acquire an ownership stake in the ESPs. This is definitely something that they could ask. Then the second question, from an accounting perspective, do you think that content providers will be treating this as a line item deduction when calculating net profits for profit participants? Absolutely. I think this is also a very, very, very good question. I think this is definitely something that the content provider could consider by treating a line item deduction, because they will report the cost of their investment in the entire channel of creation. So they will say, we were required by law to invest in the contents, and now, of course, we will reduce our investment, and the impact could be direct for the tenants, and of course for the net profits for profit participants at the end of the chain. Okay, so this is the very important point. The other question: why does the EU take a different view of creation and expansion of internet connectivity infrastructure? I really like the analogy of public roads. Vehicle manufacturers are not charged with paying for the creation. That's very true, and maintenance of the roadways. So the EU take this different view of creation expansions with respect to internet connectivity, because, as I said in introduction, there was this pandemic situation, and actually there is kind of a very desperate, and this is I know that is a strong word, I'm using that, but there is a desperate need of new source of money for the investments. And actually the telecommunications, and actually there is also a very strong position from the telecommunications companies who saying that, okay, we won't pay anymore in infrastructure because we are very impacted by the crisis. And of course, they could also use the Ukraine situation now, the crisis, which is very real in all the economies of the world. And actually, since there is one important party who say, I won't pay for more investment in technologies, they need to obtain other source and to diversify the source of investment.
And also in the history of the EU regulation, from the beginning, they wanted to bring the content providers, and there was a lot of regulation that was very open and nice to those big content providers to make a market. So there was a lot of regulation that was helping them. There was no responsibility for the content and so and so. And it was, when we speak about the neutrality of the net, it was 2015. Now, 6 years after, they are so big, so important that now the EU decided to have a reflection to how we can now, those so big companies with so much money, now to make them contribute to the market that is very useful for them, because the UE, as we showed, the EU consumers are very well equipped and they have a large access to all this because of the ISPs, and now they try to balance again the power of those GAFAM against the ISPs.
Yeah. And two last questions, one remark and one question. I totally agree with the comments saying that it is important to deal with piracy because it can lead to security risk nationally and European countries collectively and to private enterprise. I totally agree with this because, of course, there is now a room open for security risk, because if there is investment from the content providers in your infrastructure, there is also, of course, introduce new open access in such infrastructure. They will diversify, of course, the entrance access to from piracy, and of course this could lead to security risk, and that this is one of the also arguments opposed by the content providers. And lastly, from Amsterdam, so from someone from the European territory, was saying that does the future of European ISP content providers opportunity for more commercial advertisement options with streaming content? Not necessarily. This is already discussed today with the introduction of, for instance, by Netflix of a service access with AVOD, what we call the AVOD. Okay. So this would not lead necessarily to more commercial advertisement options, but this is maybe something that could help to catch the lack of investment, the lack of resources. Coming from the new investments in the infrastructure. So of course, the reaction, in one word, the reaction from the content providers would be to say, okay, if we contribute to the investment of the telco infrastructure, we also need to get new source of incomes, and this could lead from a more flexible commercial advertisement regulation, which is very, very strong in Europe as well. So of course, in this castle of cards, if you touch something, of course, someone will try to negotiate a better stick in the big picture. Okay, so sorry, we know that it was very hard and actually in AV, and the time is not that long, but we hope that the idea of this was just to cover and to give you a few insights and a few information about the upcoming debates. Of course, we are at the very beginning of this, so many other discussion would be introduced in the upcoming month, and actually we would be delighted to discuss more with you about this
and give information of the current discussion when they will have some, to share with you and to update this big debate with some information that we will receive, of course, and we will follow for the firm and for you also.
And I think it's 1 hour. So I don't know if there are any other questions or if it's time to say bonne nuit et au revoir et bonne journée to all of you. But again, it was it was an honor to discuss with you, and feel free to prolong it and to discuss more about this if you really need.